The Ward Scott Files is produced by Ward Scott Files, LLC.
Come on, everybody! Come on, everybody!
This is a Ward Scott Files advisory. The Ward Scott Files radio show may contain material not suited for people who are easily offended. Trust us on this. This show contains adult information and opinions. Please protect small children, sensitive pets, fragile houseplants, and liberal relatives. Thank you.
All right, good morning. Good morning. I'm seeing some people checking on here. I'm going to say hello to everybody collectively here, and we'll try to say hello to you individually. Jay's back there behind the wall running the whole show, and he's the production man. No, I didn't say it. I never get that. I did not complete it. I said show, and you thought I was going to say wah. But it's a family show. I can't do that, man, you know. But, some people do. I mean, one of those shock things, those shock jocks, or whatever they call them anyway. Well, we're having a good show today for you here. You had, yesterday we kind of broke the ice and let you know what was going on. Today we're going to follow up on it. But we're going to try to start off kind of light here from the Warthog Man Cave and work our way into the stuff that, might be a little heavier, as they say. So we're going to go light from heavy. But here's the deal. Immigration. I just want Jay and I are laughing about this. We were running this thing before we went on the air. You don't think immigration isn't a problem? That's been put on the back burner while we're waiting on the Gould's report. Now we got Bug Eyes and that whole crowd over there trying to push more subpoenas and everything and keep that on the burner. But so all that's a distraction, to the immigration. So we saw this little, it's kind of a scene that we thought we'd share with you. It's from the Brooks County Sheriff's Department. Deputies were conducting a traffic stop on a white Ford, I think it was an F-250 there, and then they found that the license plate showed that the truck had been stolen and all that business, so they stopped it in Brooks County, Texas, and once they stopped it, we'll show you what happened. Huh?
You're north on 281 south of the scales, correct?
That's your immigration problem. There's 20 of them pile out of that thing, out of that one truck. Take a look at that. How do you get 20 guys in an F-250? Way back in the day, we used to practice that with stacking the Volkswagen Bug full of people to see how many we could cram in there. I don't know what the record was, but there was some record. And now we got illegals piling in here, and there was 20 bail out of that one after the cops ran it down for a phony tag and stopped it, and then it sped off. So that was one thing we wanted to kind of start out kind of lightly with you on. The other thing, I think this is really kind of amazing, although in a way it's not. We know this stuff goes on. The investigator Mark Glazer has been hollering about fraud forever. It's almost his personal subject that he's become really a national expert on. But get this now, this according to Daily Call, the Social Security Administration paid nearly, now sit down while you're watching this, $42 million, okay, $42 million in Social Security checks went out to about, are you ready, 500 dead people in 3 states. 40, and you want the government to get bigger, right? You want them to take over more of your life. You really want them to take over the medical world, right? You really want those guys to take over the medical world? 42 million to about 500 dead people in 3 states. There's about 70 million people who are receiving more than $1 trillion of economic assistance through Social Security. Now, you got to remember that for Social Security people who are getting Social Security checks, that's their money. They keep saying it's an entitlement. It's not an entitlement. It was deducted from your working paycheck, and you paid taxes on it when you earned it, and then you pay taxes on it when you get it back. So, and then you add in and factor in some kind of fraudulent payment for the government. It's a mess, but I just wanted to kind of let you know that happened. The other fraud that we've got, which and Jay and I have been laughing about this too, it's really kind of, we've heard all these things about climate change, right? I mean, we've been hearing about climate change and climate change and climate change. Well, how do you explain this now, right, Jay? I mean, and the key Greenland glacier is growing again. This is from according to NASA. Okay? By the Associated Press, according to NASA, a major Greenland glacier that was one of the fastest shrinking ice and snow masses on Earth is now growing again. And this is according to a NASA study. It's the Jacobsfund Glacier around 2012 was retreating about 1.8 miles and thinning nearly 130 feet annually, but it started growing again at about the same rate in the past 2 years. And this is according to a study in Monday's Nature Geoscience. And the study authors and outside scientists think, well, they don't know what to make of it. It could be temporary, but it surprised them because they had got themselves pointed in one direction. And this is the kind of thing that happens that creates bad research. These guys get their heads pointed in one direction and they believe things are happening. Then they tailor their research to make that belief even stronger. And then something like this throws a monkey wrench in it, and they have to turn around and rethink it, and they're reluctant to do that. And the good news is, though, according to some of the surveys and people looking at it, is that it's a reminder that it's, not necessarily gone yet, and maybe it won't be gone, but it's the most important Greenland glacier because it discharges the most ice in the northern hemisphere, and for all of Greenland, it's known as the King. But they believe that the phenomenon known to this is a natural cyclic cooling of North Atlantic waters that caused the glacier to reverse course. This is according to a NASA glaciologist. Man, he got a specialty for everything, man. A glaciologist, man. And he works on something called the oceans melting Greenland. And he says that this coincides with a flip of the North Atlantic oscillation, which is a natural and temporary cooling and warming of parts of the ocean. That's like a distant cousin to El Nino in the Pacific. So, oh boy, I tell you, there's greater mysteries in nature than we can figure out. Just and you go back and look at scientific discoveries, and it's kind of funny. I mean, people got in trouble for questioning basic assumptions that turned out to be blatantly false. So this is all sort of interesting stuff. Then we have what's going on in education. And, we've been reporting on education and how it's corrupted. I mean, that's the easiest way to say it. It's corrupted by the liberal mindset, which is now recruiting for its own kind. But the Washington Times has revealed, and this is really interesting, I think, if you're in the education world, that you have to take into account. It's and this is at Duke University. Now, Duke University is supposed to be the be-all and end-all. I think it's about $25,000 a year to go there. It's supposed to be the place to go get this done and that done and this researched and that done, and it's based on tobacco money. And I'll let you in on a little secret. I'm not going to say the individual's name, but the heir to the Duke tobacco money fortune lives right around here in Alachua County. And I know that person very, very well, and it's a very well-kept secret. So Duke University agreed to a deal yesterday that will require it to repay the federal government $112.5 million. Now, I don't care who you are. If you are Duke University, that's still a hunk of change, to settle claims it falsified, are you ready, falsified scientific research at, are you ready for this, taxpayers' expense. Now, this is the prestigious private school in Durham, North Carolina, and it said it will take additional steps from here on out to ensure research integrity. And it says it already has implemented more monitoring of research in the wake of the scandal. It involved a health researcher and her supervisor. So let's take a look at what it was. Duke falsified research on nearly $200 million worth of grants, and the whistleblower who let the cat out of the bag on this is going to receive $34 million for his role in uncovering the fraud. Now, Jay, we need to get on that gravy train somehow because we uncover a lot of fraud, and as far as I know, we haven't gotten a nickel of payment for it. But
I mean, we're hate radio.
Well, because we're hate radio. I understand. Now I understand. Yeah. So here we are. Prosecutors said, now this is what was amazing, the length of this fraud, that at the length of time it went on at this Duke prestigious university, 2006 to 2018. Now that's 12 years. And it involved money from the National Institutes of Health and, are you ready for this? And this doesn't surprise me, the Environmental Protection Agency. Huh? So there's a sucker born every minute. And the chief researcher at the center of this scandal was Aaron Potts-Kant. He had more than a dozen papers stemming from her work on mice, retracted. Now, the prosecutor said that the school's higher-ups knew about her fraudulent research but allowed it to continue. And the school is saying, oh, we didn't know about it till later. So this is pretty interesting. If you've been around the academic world as I have, this is not, it doesn't surprise me. There's so much needless, phony research that goes on to feather one's resume, to get one promoted, to get one in the journals and all that business. So individuals and institutions that have received research funding from the federal government, the whole idea, and the Trumpster is going to have to tighten this up, is to be more scrupulous in conducting the research and more rigorous in rooting out the fraud. Good luck on being more rigorous in rooting out the fraud. There is so much fraud everywhere, and if the Democrats had their way, there'd be even more and more and more of it. So this is at Duke. They didn't respond when they were asked for a comment. Doesn't surprise, huh? But the school president, Vincent Price, it wasn't a Vincent Price, that was before your time, Jay, but he was some kind of actor, I remember. I think he acted villain roles.
Was that like in 1928?
But this is a difficult moment for Duke, Vincent Price says, and he wrote this to the email to the Duke community in the Duke Chronicle. And the case, he says, demonstrates the devastating impact of research fraud and reinforces the need for all of us to have a focused commitment on promoting research integrity and accountability. I don't know, when you've got the entire government hollering, you know, the sky's falling and the world's coming in 12 years, and you want to make yourself a reputation, it's very easy for kind of cornball research to take place, and then for it to have itself perpetuated by other cornball researchers, and all of a sudden it gets down. You know, here's another thing about fraud that we've discovered, you know, and Mark knows this very, very well, is it takes usually somebody inside to blow the whistle. If the thing is really, really ramped down tightly, it's very hard to penetrate that because there's so many wagons circled around the event at the center of the wagon circle. So this was a result of a whistleblower. I have no information. This article by the Washington Times does not go into anything about who the whistleblower was, except that he was a former Duke employee and that he'll get $33.75 million. His name is Joseph Thomas. And they also, Duke had another research scandal that dated back more than a decade. This is coming out. The Duke medical professor, Avenatti, engaged in misconduct while researching treatments in human cancer patients. I would think that's a pretty serious transgression when you're doctoring, I like to use that word, doctoring the doctor research of cancer patients. These studies by, this was not a doctor who did it, it was a researcher, were published in the top medical journals, including the New England Journal of Medicine, which is considered the Bible, the holy grail of the medical world by many. So they had a settlement reached with the Federal Health Agency about that, and Duke settled lawsuits brought by patients and estates of patients who participated in those medical frauds. Last year, the National Institute of Health required Duke University to increase their reporting of how federal grant money was being spent. You know, everybody in the academic world has got his hand out for this federal grant stuff. And you know, without it, a lot of the research wouldn't be done. And of course, everybody's in competition to be known as the top researching institution, including University of Florida wants to be known as a top research institution. One of the bad things about that is really the emphasis should be on the students, not the research. I mean, it's about teaching people. And but often that's not what the research, the actual emphasis becomes. The school is so competitive and wants to be in the top this or top that, and Florida's an excellent example, that it wants to go out and get the grants, get the research, bring in these guys, and meanwhile, the actual students languish on the vine. They don't really ever get the type of exposure to the great people at the university that they need. I know all about that, believe me, and it's someday I'll maybe go into a whole analysis of how education has shifted over the years. And I was a participant in it, watched it change, and I felt wow, who's going to be able to stop this thing? Of course, we got the theme. I think is for today. Is it not, Jay? Maybe. What was our theme?
Stupid lies exposed.
Stupid lies exposed, and we're going to go through a little bit more because there's been more analysis done now, as you can imagine, about this whole thing, and it will continue to be analyzed. It's going to stay in the news, of course, as to what's going on, how it got to be in this situation, where do you go from here. There's going to be a lot of pontificating on that, and it's going to be interesting to kind of watch it and how it unfolds, because it's going to be strung out by the Democrats. It's the only thing that most people can see that they have that they can do is keep things fomented and all messed up. And the first thing they really want to do, and I don't know if these come in any really particular order, but they want to investigate the investigator. Now that Trump is apparently vindicated, they want to investigate the investigator. And to do that, they have to, subpoena whom? They have to subpoena none other than the ghoul himself. Now that would be, what? That would be good TV. If they can actually pull that off.
Put that on pay-per-view.
Yeah, if they put that on pay-per-view, if they can actually get the ghoul to come in there and sit down and then let the bug eyes interrogate him, it would be worth the price of admission. It would be hilarious. It would make the Kavanaugh hearings look like kindergarten play, huh? And we know what a fraud those things were. So, without the findings of the Justice Department or a total and complete exoneration of the president, so saith, of course, Sarah Sanders, the Democrats have said, well, we got to get to now. Boy, that. By the way, their candidates are on the rope right now. They haven't figured out what to say about it. But the big thing that really needs to be asked of the ghoul is, what was this Russian dossier all about? How did he get the ball rolling? And what was Andrew McCabe's role? What was Lisa Page, Bruce Orr, Struck? They're all going to be, if Lindsey Graham has his way, and he will, we're going to investigate all that and come at it from a different angle, and that's going to be good TV and good news to keep you up on. It's going to be to determine, the biggie is what were the members of the United States intelligence services doing, taking part in an effort to compromise the President of the United States. And this is the big one. They've turned our own counterintelligence people against our own president. So the Democrats, of course, this is according to the Boston Herald that's covering this. Even the Boston Herald has had to come out and back a little bit now and become a little more sober-minded about their reportage. But the Democrats and the media, they don't show much interest at all in an investigation. They don't want to do that. They don't want to go and take a look at CNN and its responsibility for putting out all that phony stuff all those years. They would, however, like to bring in the investigator and investigate the investigator, which, as I say, I think would be just marvelous television. And particularly when you have the likes of Fat Jerry and those type of people, if you got nothing to do else, you can always throw up Fat Jerry and the Bug Eye, because those guys are really, really out there. To me, they're some of the strangest people I've ever run across. But the world is full of strange people, and they probably think I'm strange, but that's all right. I'm a manly man. I can take it, right?
How can they say you're strange when they see this guy on the screen?
Oh, golly. Well, anyway, There's been a cataloging done by the Daily Caller of the 7 dead collusion theories. I thought we ought to probably go through those, students, to make sure what they are, and kind of have a memory trip of what they were. Here were, according to the Daily Caller, what is some, and I suppose if anybody were honest, this would be the same thing. It involves all these guys: Carter Page, Papadopoulos, Manafort, Cohen, Stone, all these kind of characters, and all the theories that come to pass in this thing. An investigation, did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russians. I swear, I read the Ian Fleming books, From Russia with Love, with James Bond and all that. Those were good movies too. But here are the 7 conspiracy theories. Carter Page, okay. The Steele dossier alleged that Carter Page, who was a Trump campaign advisor, took part in a well-developed conspiracy of cooperation between the Trump campaign and the Russian leadership. And according to the former British spy, no, it was not 007 and Sean Connery. According to the former British spy Christopher Steele, Page was working under the direction of Paul Manafort, the Trump campaign chairman, to carry out the conspiracy. Okay? And the reason for using WikiLeaks was plausible deniability. And the operation had been conducted with the full knowledge and support of Trump himself and the senior members of the campaign team. This was all alleged in a memo by Steele in late July 2016. In exchange for the help, Trump's team agreed to side with Russia on the Ukraine issue. Huh? So according to Steele's August 10, 2016 memo, Page had conceived and promoted the idea of releasing stolen DNC emails through WikiLeaks in order to swing Democrats away from Hillary Clinton and toward Bernie Sanders. Boy, the plot is so thick here. It is so intriguing. All these people backstabbing each other and using the gullible press and the gullible pundits and pollsters and managers and all that stuff to further this whole scheme. We got to get to the bottom of who dreamt this up, because this guy is one of the best fiction writers, when we get to the bottom of it, you've ever seen. He can write a thriller like you've never seen, because that's basically what this has turned out to be. So Steele also claimed that Page met in Moscow with two Kremlin insiders, and the dossier, and said this in the dossier, and it was blackmail material on both Trump and Hillary. So, but Page has denied all of this, and the allegations from the dossier, which the FBI used to obtain 4 surveillance warrants against the former Trump aide. But guess what? Guess what? Page was not charged in the Mueller investigation. The Gould didn't charge him. So George Papadopoulos, the FBI's initial collusion theory involved Papadopoulos, a 32-year-old energy consultant, and on July 31st, 2016, the FBI opened a counterintelligence investigation into Papadopoulos based on a tip the Bureau had received from the Australian government. Yes, yes, so this is wonderful. This is a bestseller. So Alexander Downer, the Australian High Commissioner to the UK, claimed that during a May 10, 2016 meeting in London, Papadopoulos told him that Russia had information on Hillary that it planned to release later in the campaign. So Papadopoulos said that 2 weeks before that meeting, he had breakfast in London with another diplomat who told him that the Russians had dirt on Clinton in the form of thousands of her emails. Papadopoulos insists that he did not tell anyone on the campaign about those remarks and that he did not view, handle, or disseminate Clinton emails. But he pled guilty on October 5, 2017 to lying to the FBI about the extent of his contacts with the Russian misfud. But he was never charged with a more serious crime, and he served a 14-day prison term. And he's written a book. Guess what? I don't know how many books you can get out of this. This is really fertile fiction land. I mean, everybody ought to be writing a book. We ought to be writing a book, Jay. Now, Michael the Rat Cohen, huh? He, of course, as you know, is the former Trump lawyer. He's accused in the dossier of visiting Prague in August 2016 to meet with Kremlin officials for the purposes of paying off hackers. So the the agenda comprised questions on how many deniable cash payments were to be made to hackers who had worked in Europe under Kremlin direction against the Clinton campaign. And that is what the Steele's memo says, December 13, 2016. So these dossier allegations against Cohen were viewed as some of the strongest claims of collusion that have surfaced during what is called Russiagate. And Cohen, the rat, has vehemently denied the claims since BuzzFeed published the dossier. On February 27th, after he'd been sentenced in the special counsel's probe to 3 years in the jug, the rat testified he'd never been to Prague. So the testimony was seen as a knockout blow for the dossier's credibility, and the Ghoul's findings seemingly ended all debate on the matter. The rat was sentenced to 3 years in prison on charges of tax evasion, bank fraud, illegal campaign contributions, and making false statements to Congress, but never going to Prague, Czechoslovakia. Paul Manafort. Now, he was linked to the dossier to Carter Page. He was the former Trump campaign chairman. He was found to have sent cryptic emails during the campaign referencing Oleg Deripaska, who is a Russian oligarch who was locked in a business dispute with Manafort. So the special counsel focused Manafort's role in sending polling data during the campaign to 2 Russian oligarchs. If he needs private briefings, we can accommodate, Manafort wrote, and this was picked up as an email. The Washington Post reported it. So this email has been widely interpreted as Manafort suggesting that he would use his job on the Trump campaign to settle his debts with Deripaska. But little came of this. Manafort's links to Deripaska, nothing came of this. Manafort was convicted in federal court in Virginia in August 21, 2018 on charges relating to his Ukraine consulting work. He cooperated with the special counsel after pleading guilty and working as an unregistered foreign agent of the Ukraine. So the special counsel's office hinted at times that prosecutors had evidence that dealt with the core issues of the investigation, but they were never presented the evidence during the court hearings. So, no Manafort in the Ghoul's report. Trump Tower is another one. They go on and on. I'm saying, Jay, this is better than anything Hollyweird could come up with. I mean, it just, Hollyweird thinks it's got it together. Now, Hollyweird will probably rip all this off and make it into some kind of movie. And, you can imagine, I'm tangled in my own wires here, by the way. No, I got it. I think I do without hanging myself. Yeah, I got it, man. Trump Tower, the Democrats were convinced that on June 9, 2016, Trump Jr. and a group of Russians, this is the strongest verifiable evidence they could get. This was going to hang the Trumpster. Trump Jr. accepting the meeting after receiving an email on June 3rd, 2016 from Rod Goldstone, who was a music publicist who worked for a Russian pop star. You can't get more minor characters involved in a plot than, it's his Baking War and Peace by Tolstoy looked like a child's story. I mean, it's really something. This is all fiction, you understand. This is all fiction. So in the email, Goldstone said that Alegorov's billionaire father had met with Russia's crown prosecutor and wanted to offer the Trump campaign some official documents and information that would incriminate Hillary and her dealings with Russia and would be very helpful to your father. And Trump Jr. accepted, writing, if it's what you say it is, I'd love it. So Goldstone responded to say that a Russian government attorney would fly to the U.S. for the meeting. So Trump Jr. attended the meeting with Manafort and Jared Kushner. Russia attorney Natalia, I can't even say her name, Velenskaya, attended along with Goldstone and several other Russians, and all the attendees have claimed that the meeting was a waste of time, that no information regarding the campaign was exchanged. And Velenskaya provided the campaign with a short memo containing research compiled by Fusion GPS, the opposition research firm that ironically commissioned the Steele dossier. So Velenskaya was working at the time with Fusion GPS on an investigation of a guy named Bill Browder, who was a London-based financier who spearheaded the Magnitsky Act, which is a sanctions law opposed by the Kremlin. Oh, golly. So after 2 years and all that kind of business, Google had to come out and say, ain't nothing there that I can do anything about. There was nothing happened. So, boy, that was a biggie. If you recall, Trump Tower, Trump Tower, Trump Tower, and the whole story was, he really wants to build a Trump hotel in Moscow, and so really what he's going to do, Trumpster, is he's going to betray the country to get his private hotel built in Moscow. They even went down to say, I think Fat Jerry or somebody asked the Rat this question. I do remember it being asked. Asked the Rat if that hotel had been built, would Putin have had a room? And the Rat said, yeah. And then Fat Jerry or Bug Eyes said, well, would Putin have paid for it? And the Rat says, oh, no. Guys like that, we comp their rooms. Yeah. So, oh, boy, they went crazy over that. That hotel had been built, and Putin had somehow pulled the strings for it in return for influence in the United States, and Trump would have paid him off with a penthouse room that Putin didn't have to pay for. Wow. That's the way it goes. That's what's been going on. So, no Trump Tower attendees other than Manafort was charged by the Google. Now, you got Roger Stone and Jerome Corsi. The one theory of collusion that emerged over the past year was that Stone and conspiracy theorist Corsi were linked to WikiLeaks. So the prosecutors keyed in on Stone because of tweets he sent and remarks he made in August 2016 that suggested he had inside knowledge of WikiLeaks' plans to release emails stolen from the Democrats. So Stone said in interviews that he had communications with WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, but he tweeted it would soon be the Podesta's time in the barrel, and Stone has insisted he had no direct contact with WikiLeaks or Assange. He also claims that he did not know that WikiLeaks could release Clinton campaign chairman John Podesta's emails back in October 2016. He said he maintained that he received tips about the timing and seriousness of the emails from a left-wing activist who was a friend of the WikiLeaks attorney. This guy's name is Randy Critico. So Stone released these text messages that show Critico providing information about the timing of the email releases. So to jump forward on what we've done with those guys, he was indicted by the special counsel on January 24th, but not on charges, Stone this is, not on charges relating to conspiring with Russia or WikiLeaks. He was instead charged with making false statements to the House Intelligence Committee regarding discussions about WikiLeaks with associates and Trump officials. There's a guy named Peter Smith that was all caught up in this, who he actually died by suicide. And
Are you sure he wasn't suicided?
well, he had overhyped his Clinton email project. There's a bunch of people. I'm not one of these guys who thinks there's anything to it, but my golly, it's an awful big pattern that you've got when you go look at all the people around the Clintons who croak one way or another. They're found in the ditch or they've blown themselves up. So I don't know. I'm not going to get into that. But in this case, there were 7 dead collusion theories that the Google killed. We just went through most of them with you, that had been in the popular news, that had been ramped up on all the stations, that the Democrats had run up the flagpole. Man, this is it. Mad Maxine was chomping at the bit. Old lady Pelosi with all her twitches and everything, she was just ready to go with it. They just can't get enough of it. Now, the Washington Times, this is all coming out now. It's this post-game analysis, and even the 6 Trump associates that were charged by the special counsel, the Google, all those are virtually devoid of any campaign communications with known Russian government officials during the election. This is the Washington Times now coming back and saying the very same thing, and the lack of such contacts explains why the Google team of mostly Democrat, now these were Democrat-aligned prosecutors, if you remember, that the Google had working for him, ended its investigation Friday without charging a Trump-related person in a Russian conspiracy to affect the 2016 presidential election. This has got the Democrats, of course, off the rails. They just can't get this in through the head. The candidates, apparently, for the 2020, all that crowd of weirdos, they have been silent. You know, you haven't heard anything from Kamala, who slept her way to the top. You haven't heard, you know, with, to the bottom, yeah, I guess slipped her way to the bottom, whatever, with Willie Brown, the mayor of San Francisco. You haven't heard anything. They've kind of got Ocasio shut up right now because I think they're fed up with her. They think she's going to lead them down a path of ruin. I don't know if they're going to get their Muslim women reined in or not, but the Democrat side of the aisle is in disarray right now. They really don't have a place to start out with climate change being debunked and you know, the court thing that they invented coming up and with their people that they, you know, thought was sympathetic to them coming up with a less than satisfactory kind of conclusion. The only thing they've got is to go invent the wheel all over again and try to push it now with their own, and that's going to backfire on them because people are tired of it. So this is where we are now, and you know, they're going to try a number of attacks. They'll end up attacking Barr. They've already started doing that by saying, oh, well, you know, Barr was recommended by Trump. Hey, Congress signed off on Barr. I mean, don't you remember all the conversations he had to have with those people? I mean, they grilled him up one side and down the other. So, you know, now all of a sudden, oh my golly, but he's Trump's guy. He's not our guy. So, you know, the New York Times has been reporting misinformation, saying that they had through phone records and interceptions of those phone records that the Trump campaign aides had repeated contacts with Russian intelligence. That's a poppycock. John O'Brennan, who is a Muslim, don't forget this, O'Brennan, who was Obama's CIA chief, he is a Muslim, a Trump hater. He testified before the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence that he has encountered, and this was, you know, 2 months after this deal, you know, what the New York Times had printed, and this was back in January 2017, so that puts it about now a year ago. He testified that he encountered and was aware of information and intelligence that revealed contacts and interactions between Russian officials and U.S. persons involved in the Trump campaign. You know, that's all BS. But he testified it raised questions in his mind about whether or not the Russians were able to gain the cooperation of those individuals. But then when push come to shove, he had to say, well, he didn't really know. But it looked as if, you know, well, there's smoke, there must be fire. Last year, CNN reported that the U.S. intelligence agencies noticed a spate of curious contacts between Trump campaign associates and suspected Russian intelligence. You know, so this has been coming steadily now for 2 years. And, you know, it is amazing that anybody could put up with this. And Trump is one of those guys that only makes him tougher. Some guys, you know, I'm going to hearken back to what I think was the greatest running back in pro football, and that was Jim Brown. I don't know, you probably guys never saw Jim Brown play, but I watched Jim Brown every Sunday play for the Cleveland Browns. And he's still alive. And he was, by everyone's measurement, the toughest guy in the NFL. And the thing about him that he was given the ball again and again and again. He almost set this up as a philosophical statement that many coaches believe by now. When you got a horse, you ride him all the way to the end. When you got a guy like Brown who can take the punishment and really not just take it, but dish it out. I've seen guys bounce off of Brown and hate to tackle him. He just gets tougher. He gets stronger. The more you pound on him, the stronger he gets. And I think that Trump is that type of guy. You know, he's in shape all the time. He's ready. Come at him. Supposedly, the only thing that bothered him was that, you know, when they picked on his kids and his family, he thought that was unfair. But as far as picking on him, it doesn't bother him at all. You go back and pull the films and watch Jim Brown carry the ball for the Cleveland Browns. Nobody's ever been able to do it like he did it. So here we go. The Ghoul finally ended his 2-year investigation. without charging collusion and informing the Justice Department, he recommended no further indictments. That really, and of course we know he hedged his bet by saying, I don't have enough evidence to, he should not have said it that way. Everybody knows that prosecuting attorneys don't do that. So, but you know, I don't think it's going to matter really. I mean, the Democrats are going to try to make hay out of it, but I don't think it's going to matter at all. The people see what's happening, and that's what's. So he threw cold water. The ghoul has thrown cold water on about 6 stories just that I went through there with you on that. The big outlets that kept, you know, going on forever. Now they want to get the ghoul in there and cross-examine. And as I said, I would pay money to see that. But they also want to drag Barr in there. And Fat Jerry said yesterday that he plans to haul. I like that verb that the Washington Times writer Tom Howell used. He plans to haul. Attorney General William P. Barr before Congress. Haul him before Congress, as his party looks to wring every detail of special counsel the ghoul's probe out of the Justice Department. Huh?
Let's have a moment of silence for Mueller.
Moment of silence for the ghoul?
Yeah. Preparing for his eventual suicide.
No, I think the ghoul. This is just another day at the bar for him. These are these guys go through this stuff all the time. I mean, that's their deal. Poring over the papers, looking for prosecutorial entrapment. See if they can't catch you in a conflicting story and get you for perjury. That's the way they operate. And so you got a top Democrat Sunday says he plans. That's old Fat Jerry. He plans to haul Barr before the Congress to find out. I don't know if he'll get anywhere much like that. If I think I were Barr, if I could, I'd just give him the International Fighter Pilot salute and say, hit the road, Jack. A lot of those 81 subpoenas are apparently doing that. They're just not answering the knock on the door. I mean, and I got friends. That's what they do. They go serve subpoenas, and hell, a lot of times they can't find the people. So it's not new, But he's going to. The Fat Jerry's announced that he's going to call Barr in the near future, and of course, he says Congress has oversight duties on what we call discrepancies. So they're going to hunt now. They're going to go looking high and low. You understand, for discrepancies. When the whole thing of 2 years and $50 billion or whatever it was found no evidence that could be used by a reasonable person. Now, that's a whole nother deal, whether you're dealing with reasonable people here. I don't think the Democrats, including Fat Jerry there, has been reasonable for quite some time. In fact, there is a movement now, which I think is the proper movement, to have Fat Jerry and Bug Eyes removed as chairs because they've already showed presidential attitudes about that which they're investigating. Now, here's my point. That's what would happen in a court of law. I mean, your attorney would jump to his feet and then cross-examine that juror, and if you found that juror was already predisposed to find you guilty, I had a friend who used to use that as a technique to get off the juries. They'd call him up there and they'd ask him, well, what do you think about John up there on the stand? Well, if he's on the stand, he's guilty. Oh man, they chunked him out of there right away, I mean, he did it as a device to get off the jury. He knew, hey, if I go up there right now and say, you don't need a trial, the guy's here in the courtroom, he's guilty. Well, man, hit the road, Jack. We don't need you. And yet we got this going on with Fat Jerry and Bug Eyes, and they...
You're spot on when it comes to that.
There's no question about that. I mean, I've never been wrong. And if I'm wrong, I've been misunderstood or misheard, okay? So the Democrats are claiming they have no choice. They have no choice. And we've got to conduct more oversight. So let them. I think it's going to be hilarious. I think they're going to find out what fools they are and what people think of them. And, they got a little, we don't want to see crypt notes. We don't want to see an outline. We don't want to see an executive summary. That's what they're calling the reportage now by Barr. They're calling it, crypt notes and things like that. We want to see the entire thing. What they want to do is they want to go through all of the details and cherry pick out the ones that they can distort, okay? And then they can get that out, leaked out to the press, and the goal is still to get Trump removed from office, and certainly not to let him stay in office. And if they can get him removed through impeachment by going through the details of a report, some of which has been before a grand jury and can't go public, then that's all they care about. They don't care about the country. We just showed you the immigration thing at the top of the show with 20 guys piling out of a F-250. That's just one F-250. Meanwhile, that thing is, simmering down there along the border. They don't care about that. It's a whole smorgasbord of zany things that they're trying to do, from redoing the Electoral College to 16-year-olds voting. It's the whole kit and caboodle, and they're going to sling all that stuff as wide and as far as they can. And I just don't think, and I said it yesterday, if we take a look at the philosophy that Martin Luther King employed, and that was passive resistance, and if they keep kicking you while you're down and you don't resist, human nature champions the underdog, and they're going to make Trump into the underdog. Now, I do think, however, and this is a little bit of a psychology move here, I do think that Graham should set up a special counsel and go find out whatever there is to find out about what did Obama know, when did he know it, what did Hillary know, when did she know it, and work their way back through Strzok, and all those people, get them in there before the Senate Intelligence Committee or whatever they get them before, and ask them under oath these questions and see where it takes you. I do think that needs to happen. A little bit of a risk there is that if it really starts revealing the truth and how dastardly and despicable those people have been, will it either further make the Trump into a victim or not? And will it be seen as retaliation? I think it will be further make him be seen as a victim, because once you get to the bottom of that, you're going to find out it is dead set ugly. I mean, it is very criminal. I promise you. I got too good of instincts. I can tell you, what's going on here. But I remain vulnerable. I remain acceptable to being wrong. Don't get me, if I'm wrong. But I don't think that's the case. I think if Graham sets up this special counsel and goes and takes a look as vigorously and as extensively as they did on Trump with this Google investigation, you're going to find out some things going to explode your head. You're going to find out it's a big, just like Victor Davis Hanson called it, it was a coup to take a sitting president out of power, who had won it legally in the correct way. So, and I think the American people will draw the right conclusions about that. I think they see Nancy Pelosi as a clown, and I think these people are becoming pretty. They're characters of humorous characters in the way they behave, because it's so obvious that they're not really substantial character to them. They're not able to admit they called the wrong plays and lost the game, or they're not, for the sake of the league, they're not willing to go ahead, and accept, because after all, there are many, many more games to be played, and why would you try to screw up all those games that have yet to be played by churning this one until it becomes destructive to the American way of life and the American political system. That's really what's going on here. And so, I felt like, class and students, this is a big research paper for you. This is something for you to keep your eye on and stay involved in. It's going to be your world, especially the younger people who watch this. It's going to be your world. This is why this has to be set right. It has to be done right. We have to find out if a president and a secretary of state deliberately set out to undermine the duly elected president of the United States, Donald Trump. We have to find that out. We've got to find that out. That is absolutely essential. And, given all the things that are indicators that the beat up server and this, that, one, and another, people are hiding something. I mean, they're really hiding something. and it wasn't just sensitive intelligence so that the commies wouldn't get it. That's not what it was. So there have been winners and losers in this. Huh? Avenatti. Yeah, we're going to get to Avenatti. Let's put Avenatti up there for a moment. We have not been we have not come over here and hit Avenatti for you. But Avenatti. What's that phone ringing back there, man? We got a phone call back there. All right. Anyway, that's not us. So, you know who Avenatti is. He's the guy that took Stormy Daniels, right, and tried to get her deal. So that was another attack on Trump. And now the dude is himself, along with his celebrity attorney and CNN analyst Mark Garagos. I think we're saying that right. They are co-conspirators in a federal indictment handed down Monday, and this is according to the Wall Street Journal. They were indicted and arrested Monday in New York on charges of wire fraud, bank fraud, and attempting to extort $20 million from Nike. I mean, you want to take on an issue? You take on Nike? So Avenatti has threatened to publicly disparage Nike. He threatened to publicly disparage Nike if the company didn't pay him millions of dollars, according to the indictment. Now, this character has always been a sleazebag. Anybody with this built-in sleazebag sleazebagometer can tell you right away this guy is a creep. And according to the Wall Street Journal, Avenatti's co-conspirator, this Garagos, who's a lawyer who was famous for representing clients like Michael Jackson and Colin Kaepernick. Isn't it funny how all these people are associated with each other? Avenatti and the alleged co-conspirator met with liars from Nike's liars at the firm Bowles Schiller on March 19th, according to the indictment. It's almost crazy what they allegedly did. The duo said they would release information damaging to Nike unless the company paid them more than $20 million on top of $1.5 million to a client who Avenatti was representing. Come on. Now, the boys Schiller lawyers agreed to record a follow-up conversation with Avenatti on behalf of the feds. This is according to the Wall Street Journal sources. So in March 20 phone call, Avenatti again requested $1.5 million for his client and also sought a lucrative retainer to conduct an internal investigation of Nike. Avenatti alleged threateningly that if Nike failed to meet his demands, quote unquote, I'll go take $10 billion off your client's market cap. And then he says, I'm not effing around. If this were not a family show, since we're not governed by FCC regulations, I would go ahead and use the F-bomb there with you. But he says, I'm not effing around, he said in a phone call. And this is all according to the Wall Street Journal. So this CNN is in it again. This is one of their analysts. Huh? Yeah, he's one of their analysts in cahoots with Avenatti. And you know, as of the date of the writing of this article, Garagos was still on CNN's page as a legal analyst. He just got fired? Jay said he just got fired. There you go. There you go. Huh? Now, Stormy Daniels, God, boy, there's a case for you. You know, she's really not that hot anyway as a porn star. You can go check it out. I mean, you know, I don't know how I'd know. People have told me. You know, Steamy's way overrated. Overrated. Oh, come on. I mean, she's way overrated. But Steamy issued a statement after Avenatti's arrest. Now, this is a sleazebag calling sleazebag. And she said that she was saddened, but not shocked by the news. She suggested that she will release damning information about Avenatti in the near future. You know, this den of thieves can't stop stabbing each other in the back. I mean, it's really something. So we're going to keep, now Avenatti, he already has created his own reality out of this. He says, oh my golly, I'll get out of this. They can't keep me in the jug, you know. I'll get out of this. So Thank you for reminding me of that creep. You know, there's all kinds of people out there that we rub elbows with, and you know, it is what it is. So
I guess we'll be rubbing elbows with Cohen, huh?
the Rat, oh man, what a cast! Now here's the thing that they all have in common. All right, Jay, say after me. Let's see if you can pass the quiz today. All right, I know you can, lad. All of these characters have in common what? They all attack Trump.
You didn't even give me a chance to answer the question.
I didn't want you to look bad. Okay?
That's true. That's true.
Have I got it right?
I have Dane Bramage.
But is that sort of something that's jumped out at you? All these people, and you can go all the way back to the blonde Bimbette, Megyn Kelly, who's on the sidelines now, and Rosie, she's on the sideline. All these people who, you know, went hysterical. Oh, I got to find this article. This is a good one to conclude with. All the Hollywood weirdos. 50 Hollywood weirdos. Let me just go through the list. 50 Hollywood weirdos accused Trump of treason and collusion with Russia. And I don't know if they're cataloged all. They've called him everything. Here's what they call him. This is all. Okay. Justin Caruso has chronicled this for us. Bless Justin's heart. They've called over time, the Hollywood weirdos have called a Trumpster a traitor, a puppet, a thug, a urine lapper. Now, how in the world, huh? You got to be a Hollywood weirdo to even have that concept. I've never even heard that before. And I'm pretty jaded, okay? But I don't think I'd ever use the term urine lapper. But, you know, that was their gig, and you remember they were just brutal about it, and you know, they were running around acting as, you know, Bette Midler in July. He's a traitor. He sold himself, and soon he'll sell us. You know, these are the Hollywood weirdos. Rosie O'Donnell called Trump's summit treason summit. Michael Moore, what a nutcase that is. He said, arrest Trump when Air Force One lands. I want to see him in chains. That's Michael Moore. These are nice people. Ever since I read Catcher in the Rye and Holden Caulfield called it a baloney factory, Hollywood, I've never had any different opinion about him. Barbara Streisand called, in a New York Times article, called the Trumpster a treasonous traitor. I would think all this is slander. I don't know if he's got enough. He doesn't. How many of these people can you go after? I mean, they're all nutcases. He's been called a moron, a puppet. I'm trying to think of all the words. Coward. Stephen Colbert called the Helsinki meeting treasonous. Kimmel also piled on Trump. Of course, The Views with this Joy Behar, she's a nutcase. The treason thing was the biggest word they kept using all the time. Bill Maher, he's made the same kind of statements. Rob Reiner, who's a nutcase, has accused Trump of treason. And he went unhinged in a social media thing, saying that the president was committing treason against the United States of America. He's aiding and abetting the enemy in the war against ISIS and the cyber war against Russia. He's turned the world's oldest democracy into a wholly owned subsidiary of Vladimir Putin. Oh, I am sure that if we went out and looked in the medicine cabinets of these people in Hollywood, what would we find, Jay? I think we would find all sort of medication in there. I mean, it would be renewed 4 or 5 times. I mean, you know how you get on the side of the thing, maybe be renewed, probably renewed in perpetuity. I mean,
I wouldn't want to even touch their medicine cabinet. Well, straight AIDS, man.
I might tell you, I wouldn't want to get near it. But you know, this is 50 of these people, and I'm not even going through the whole pile of them yet. You know, have been yakking like this about him being a traitor and him being this, that, one thing. But that urine lapper, that takes the, you know, how did I get to be this age, Jay, and never have heard of that? Huh? Of course, pop star Cher, who is really unhinged, accused Trump of being a liar, a thug, a crook, and a traitor who is ruining America. Well, now, she's really qualified to comment on things. I don't know, man. I guess we're going to hang it up there as a summary of what the fallout has been from the Gould's report. And I can tell you, it's only going to get better. It can't get worse because the Democrats are increasingly desperate. And the only thing they can do is start doing this. And meanwhile, there'll be 20 guys jumping out of an F-250 because we don't deal with the border and this, that, one thing, another. And the work of the country will go undone. And these guys, the Bat Jerry and Bug Eyes, they'll still get paid. They'll still get their congressional privileges. And you know, they've been doing that along with Mad Maxine and, you know, that whole crowd forever. And, you know, we'll keep you up on it. It's kind of just interesting to chronicle. This will probably be the only day we'll go through all of this like this collectively. But it is what it is. So have a great day. We can't make this stuff up. As I say, it is stranger than fiction and really, really will make one heck of a novel or movie someday. Warthog Command Center out.
Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.
Do you want to put your business in front of 10,000 new customers? Visit wardscottfiles.tv today for more information on our advertising opportunities.